Have you ever had that moment when you realize you witnessed something you shouldn't have? Where you see something, just by chance, just by being in the wrong place at the wrong time, and you immediately know in the pit of your stomach that life has just become more complicated than you can control. Mia Chen had that moment on a Thursday at 2:17 a.m., working the night shift at the stop-and-go gas station on Highway 47, 20 minutes outside of Millbrook. It was the shift no one else wanted. Dead hours between midnight and 6 a.m., where time crawls, and the only company is occasional truckers grabbing coffee and night shift workers filling up their tanks before heading home. Mia had worked there for 8 months. She knew the rhythm. She knew the regular customers. She knew the familiar boredom of watching an empty parking lot under fluorescent lights, waiting for anything to happen. And then the black SUV pulled in. It wasn't unusual. Many cars passed by, but something about this one. Something made Mia pay attention. Maybe it was how it moved, slow, deliberate, as if the driver were checking something. Maybe it was the tinted windows that prevented her from seeing inside. Or maybe it was just instinct. That instinct that everyone has, but most learn to ignore. The one that says, danger. The SUV parked at pump number 3, far from the store, in the part of the parking lot where security cameras had a bad angle. And Mia, sitting behind the counter, with her nursing book open but not reading, watched. 2 men got out. One tall, shaved head, leather jacket, went straight to the bathroom. The other shorter, stocky build started filling up the tank. Normal routine, nothing suspicious. Except there was a third man. Mia didn't see him immediately. He'd stayed in the back seat. But when he got out, when he opened the back door and leaned inside, Mia saw him. She saw him pull a suitcase. A big one. One of those hard-shell travel suitcases. Heavy, she could tell by the way he dragged it, his muscles tensing with effort. It wasn't the kind of suitcase you take for a weekend getaway. It was the kind you take when you're transporting something heavy, something you don't want anyone to see. And when the man put the suitcase down and adjusted its position, he looked around, checking, verifying if anyone was watching, and his eyes met the shop window, met Mia. For a second maybe, less they made eye contact. And the man smiled. Stay with me until the end. Because what happened after that smile was the kind of injustice that makes you question everything you believe about the justice system. It wasn't a friendly smile. It wasn't "Hi, what a cold night, huh?" It was a smile that said something completely different. It said, "You saw something you shouldn't have seen, and now you're the problem." Mia felt a shiver run down her spine. Instinctively, she looked away. She pretended to be busy with something at the counter. Her heart was beating too fast, because she recognized that smile. Not specifically his, but kind of. She had grown up in a neighborhood where she learned early on, when you see something that seems wrong, you haven't seen anything. You look the other way, you move on with your life. And Mia was planning to do exactly that. The man put the suitcase back in the SUV. He closed the door. Another man finished filling the tank. He paid inside $20 in cash, no small talk. And then they drove away. The black SUV disappeared into the darkness of the highway, and Mia breathed, released the tension she had been holding. She thought, it's over. Whatever it was, drugs, money, something illegal that wasn't her problem, it was over. They were gone. She didn't need to think about it again. Except it wasn't over. Because 15 hours later, when Mia was at home sleeping after her night shift, when she was too exhausted to do more than collapse into bed, a knock on the door woke her. Not a gentle knock, an authoritative knock. A knock that said, "Open now or we'll break it down." Have you ever been through this? Ever been woken up by a sound that you immediately knew meant trouble? Mia went to the door. She looked through the peephole and saw 3 men. Suits, badges on their belts. FBI. Her heart stopped, because the FBI doesn't show up for anything good. The FBI shows up when something serious has happened. She opened the door. "Can I help you?" Her voice came out weaker than she intended. The man in front, 40-something, gray hair, an expression that showed nothing, pulled out his badge. Agent Morrison, FBI, Mia Chen. Yes. You are under arrest on suspicion of aiding and abetting human trafficking. You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you. The words continued, but Mia didn't hear. She didn't process, because it didn't make sense. Human trafficking. She worked at a gas station. She studied nursing. She took care of her grandmother. She lived the most normal, quietest life possible. How could she be involved in human trafficking? There's a mistake, she said when she found her voice. I don't know what you're talking about. Ms. Chen, please turn around and put your hands behind your back. Not a request, an order. And Mia, in shock, obeyed. She felt the cold metal of handcuffs closing around her wrists. She felt hands guiding her out of the apartment. She saw neighbors in their doorways, watching. She saw her grandmother, an elderly woman of 70, who had raised Mia after her parents died, peer from the apartment next door, confusion and fear on her face. Mia, what happened? What did you do? Nothing, Grandma. I didn't do anything. But she was already being put in a car. She was already being taken away. And as she sat in the back seat of the FBI's black sedan, watching the neighborhood where she grew up disappear through the window, Mia realized that SUV, those men, that suitcase, whatever was inside, had incriminated her. She had seen something, and now she was paying for having looked. The system wasn't interested in truth. It was interested in a quick culprit. And Mia Young, without resources, without connections, an accidental witness to something she didn't understand, had become the perfect scapegoat. And what she didn't know, what no one but one man would realize, was that someone was watching her case. Someone with a badge and 28 years of experience who recognized exactly what was happening. Someone who was about to do something that would cost her her career, but save her life. That person was Sheriff Nathan Cross. And Nathan was 52 years old and 28 years in law enforcement. He'd seen a lot. He'd seen guilty and innocent people. He'd seen systems work and fail. But Mia Chen's case triggered alarms he couldn't ignore, because it had a pattern Nathan recognized, a pattern of scapegoating. He'd seen the initial news coverage, gas station employee arrested for complicity in human trafficking ring. Simple headline, direct, and completely one-sided, because it didn't mention that Mia had no criminal record. It didn't mention that there was no evidence of prior contact with suspects. It didn't mention that the only evidence was that she was working when the SUV pulled up. Nathan knew that gas station, a stop and go on Highway 47, it was technically under his jurisdiction, although if it were federal, then the FBI would have taken over completely. But Nathan was curious. A professional curiosity that had kept him alive and active for almost 3 decades. So he went to the station, unofficially, just a visit. He spoke with the manager, a man named Rick Donovan, whom Nathan knew casually. Terrible situation with Mia, Nathan said, grabbing coffee. How long have you worked with her? 8 months. Good worker. Always on time. No problems. Rick seemed nervous. He avoided eye contact. Were you working that night? No, I mostly work day shifts. Mia covers nights because she needs the extra money. Did the FBI review the security footage? Yes. They took everything. If something like this has ever happened to you, if you've ever seen someone thrown under a bus for being in the wrong place at the wrong time, share it in the comments. Because this feeling of systemic injustice is something many people carry. Nathan knew something was wrong. Instinct the same. Instinct Mia had when she saw the SUV was screaming. So he used his connections. He called a contact at the FBI office. Not Morrison, the man leading Mia's case, but an analyst Nathan had worked with on a case years ago. I need a favor, Mia Chen case. Can you let me see footage they confiscated from the gas station? Nathan, it's a federal case. I'm not asking for official access. just to look, off the record. Because something doesn't add up. Pause. And then, I'll send you the link. But it didn't come from me. Nathan watched the footage that night, in his own home office. And he saw exactly what the FBI had seen. A black SUV arrives. 3 men. One goes to the bathroom. One fills the tank. A third moves a trunk through the back door. And Mia, visible through the store window, watches. The camera captures the moment the man looks at her, where he makes eye contact, where he smiles. The FBI saw complicity. They saw confirmation. They saw Mia recognizing co-conspirators. But Nathan saw something different. He saw Mia's body language. How she recoiled when the man smiled. How she quickly looked away. How she returned to what she was doing with a tense posture. It wasn't the behavior of an accomplice. It was the behavior of a frightened witness, of someone who saw something she didn't want to see and was trying not to get involved. Nathan paused the video. He zoomed in. He studied Mia's expression, and he saw fear, not guilt, fear. A subtle but crucial difference. And Nathan knew with certainty from years of reading people that Mia wasn't involved. She had only witnessed it, and she was being punished for it. He dug deeper. He requested case reports through semi-official channels. And he discovered evidence the FBI was using. $500 deposited into Mia's bank account. 2 days after the incident. A cash deposit. No traceable source. The FBI claimed it was payment. Payment for Mia keeping quiet. For not reporting what she saw. But Nathan had questions. How would traffickers have Mia's bank information? Why would they deposit money in a traceable way if the objective was a secret operation? It didn't make logistical sense. Unless money was planted by someone with access to Mia's information. Someone who worked with her. Someone like a manager who had all the employee data for payroll processing. Nathan returned to the station. This time not casually. This time with specific questions. Rick, I need to see employee records. Specifically, bank information you have on file. Why? This is a federal case. You don't have jurisdiction. I have jurisdiction over any crime committed in my county, including potential incrimination of an innocent person. So, records now, or I'll get a warrant and come back with much harder questions. Rick hesitated, and Nathan saw it. Saw sweat on his brow. Saw hands trembling slightly. Saw a man hiding something. You deposited money into her account, Nathan said. Not a question. An accusation. What? No, I didn't. You have her bank information. You have access to the station's money. And you've been nervous ever since I started asking questions. If this part resonated with you. If you felt the anger of realizing that an innocent person was being framed by the very person who should be protecting her, leave a like. It helps me know you're feeling this with me. I don't know what you're talking about, Rick said, but he was backing away, moving toward the back door. Then you won't mind coming with me to the police station, answering questions officially. Under oath. I need to go. I have an appointment. And Rick tried to leave, but Nathan was between him and the door. You're not going anywhere until you tell me the truth. You work with them, don't you? With a trafficking network. Not directly, but you knew. You knew they used your post as a stopover point. And when Mia saw, when she became a potential witness, you framed her. They paid me. Rick exploded. They paid me to stay quiet, to not report. And when they said they needed someone to blame, someone the FBI would believe, I gave them Mia, because she doesn't matter. She's nobody. Just a girl working the night shift. No family. No connections. Perfect. The admission came out in a torrent, and Nathan felt pure rage. Because Rick had deliberately destroyed the life of an innocent young woman. He had planted evidence. He had collaborated with drug dealers, all for money. You're under arrest, Nathan said, pulling at handcuffs. And you're going to tell all of this to the FBI and the prosecutor, and anyone who will listen. Rick was arrested. He formally confessed. And the case against Mia began to crumble, but not fast enough. Because Mia was still detained. still awaiting a bail hearing she probably couldn't afford, still being treated like a criminal. So Nathan did something he knew would cause trouble. He went to the prison where Mia was being held. He asked to see her, not as an interrogator, as he didn't even know exactly, as someone who cared, as an officer who saw injustice and couldn't ignore it. Mia was brought into the visiting room. She looked small, lost, orange prison uniform, swallowing her thin frame, eyes red from crying. And when she saw an Athena man she didn't know, with a sheriff's badge, she tensed. "I came to ask some questions about the night in question," Nathan said, sitting down. "I've already told everything, to the FBI, to the lawyer, to everyone, and nobody believes you." Her voice was flat, defeated. "Maybe I'll believe you, if you tell me." And Mia looked up, really looked, studying Nathan's face, searching for, what? Sincerity, hope. If you want to see more stories like this, stories about people fighting against failed systems, about protection coming from unexpected places, subscribe to the channel. I bring these stories every week because they matter. Why would you be different? Mia asked. Why would you believe me when the FBI, the prosecutor, even my own lawyer, tell me to accept a deal? Because I watched footage, and I saw your expression when that man looked at you. It wasn't the expression of an accomplice recognizing a partner. It was the expression of a frightened witness seeing something dangerous. And because your gas station manager, Donovan, just confessed that he framed you, that he planted money in your account, that he works with a drug trafficking network. Tears filled Mia's eyes. Rick, did that. Why? Money. And because you were convenient. Because the system already wanted someone to blame and you were there, so I'm free. Hope in her voice. Fragile, but there. Not yet. The process takes time, and the FBI doesn't like to admit mistakes, but I'm working on it. And Mia? Nathan leaned forward. I believe you, and I'll make sure the truth comes out. I promise. And Mia, hearing that, hearing an adult with authority, finally say that he believed her, crumbled. She cried, not delicately, but deep sobs from someone who had held on for so long. And Nathan, a man who had lost his own daughter years ago to an overdose, felt something tighten in his chest. He felt a protective instinct he hadn't felt in years, because Mia reminded him of his own daughter, young, vulnerable, trying to do the right thing and being destroyed by the system that should have protected her. He wasn't going to let it happen again. Not this time. Now I want to delve even deeper into this subject. Because understanding who Mia Chen really was before her life exploded is to understand exactly why the injustice against her was so brutal, why the system chose her, and why no one except Nathan thought to question it. Mia was 22 years old, and those 22 years had been marked by loss, hard work, and a quiet determination to make something of herself, despite all odds. She was born in Millbrook, the only child of James and Lynn Chun. Her father was an engineer, her mother a primary school teacher, a middle-class family. Nothing extravagant, but comfortable, secure. Mia grew up with love, with parents who worked hard but always had time for her, who helped her with homework, who attended school recitals, who planned a future where Mia would go to a good university, have a stable career, and have a better life than theirs. And then, when Mia was 15, everything changed. Car accident, heavy rain, slippery road, truck crossed the median, and James and Lin Chen died instantly. They didn't suffer, doctors assured Mia, as if that helped, as if knowing her parents didn't suffer made their absence less devastating. Mia went to live with her maternal grandmother, Maid Chen, a 62-year-old woman at the time, who had immigrated from China at 30, who barely spoke English, who worked in an industrial laundry. Maid didn't have much, a small one-bedroom apartment in the older part of Millbrook. Modest social security, but she had love, and a determination that her granddaughter wouldn't lose her future along with her parents. Mia shared a tiny room with her grandmother for years. She slept on a sofa bed they set up every night. She studied at a small kitchen table. And she learned early, life wasn't about comfort. It was about survival, about making the best of what she had. The transformation from a teenager with a planned future to a young adult struggling to survive was abrupt, because Mia's parents didn't have much life insurance. They hadn't thought they would die at 40, so Mia inherited almost nothing. Some savings that covered a funeral and little else, and dreams of a good university, of studying in a 4-year nursing program at a state college, evaporated because there wasn't money for it, not even close. So Mia adjusted. She did what she had to do. She finished high school while working part-time at a local cafe. She saved every penny. And at 18, she enrolled in a community college. It wasn't her dream university, but it was a start. It was a path. And Mia was nothing if not determined. Community college meant classes during the day, which meant work had to be at night or on weekends. So Mia put together an impossible schedule. 3 jobs, because 1 didn't pay enough, nor 2. Gas station night shift, midnight to 6 in the morning, 4 nights a week. Paid $10.50 an hour, plus occasional tips from truck drivers who felt sorry for her. Coffee shop, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday mornings, 6:30 to 10. Morning rush hour, driving. Paid $9 an hour plus tips that were better but inconsistent. Office cleaning, Saturday and Sunday, 5 hours each day. Paid $12 an hour, but it was physically exhausting work. Scrubbing toilets, vacuuming carpets, emptying trash for people who earned in a day what Mia earned in a month. The impact of that schedule on Mia's life was total. She had no social life. She had no time. College. Classmates went to parties, went out to dinner, had the luxury of being young. Mia went to work. And when she wasn't working or studying, she was sleeping. Precious sleep, never enough. 4 hours here, 3 there. Being able to sleep 6 hours straight was a rare luxury. She didn't date. Who would have the time? Who would have the energy? And besides, how do you explain life to someone? Yes, I work 3 jobs, live with my grandmother, don't have a car, take the bus or walk, and my big dream is to graduate in nursing in 3 years and get a job that pays enough to rent my own apartment where my grandmother can have a real room. Not exactly an attractive dating profile for 22-year-olds, but Mia didn't care. Or at least she told herself she didn't care, because she had a goal. She had a reason. She wanted to be a nurse, specifically a pediatric nurse. She wanted to work with children who were sick, children who were scared, children who had perhaps lost parents or were in impossible situations. She wanted to be a kind person who made a difference when everything seemed dark, because she remembered being in the hospital after the accident, 15 years old, in shock, alone, because her grandmother was flying in from another state, and the nurse had sat with her. She didn't have to. It wasn't her job, but she had sat. She had held Mia's hand. She had let her cry. She had said, "It's going to hurt for a long time, but you're going to survive. And you're going to do something good with your life. You're going to honor them by doing something good." And Mia had believed her. Mia's journey through community college was slow but steady. She couldn't take a full course, too expensive, too time-consuming, so she took 2 or 3 classes a semester, paying for each one individually. Books were bought used whenever possible. Sometimes she didn't even buy them, just used copies from the library and took photos with her phone. It wasn't ideal, but it worked. And Mia's grades were good, excellent even. Because when she sat down to study those stolen hours between shifts, she focused completely. She had no distractions, no social life competing for her attention. Just her and her study materials, and the determination not to waste the education her parents would have wanted for her. Professors noticed. "Mia, you have real talent for this. Have you thought about transferring to a 4-year program? With your grades, you could get scholarships." And Mia smiled. She thanked them. And she didn't say, "Even with scholarships, I can't afford not to work. And 4-year programs require full-day internships. I can't do that and work 3 jobs, so I stay here, and I make it work. The revelation of how isolated Mia's life was came in small moments, like when a classmate invited her to a birthday party and Mia had to decline because she had a shift at the gas station, like when a study group met at 7 in the evening and Mia couldn't make it because she was cleaning offices, like when everyone talked about a new movie or TV show and Mia hadn't seen it, because when she wasn't working, she was studying or sleeping. She existed in a bubble: work, school, grandmother, repeat, and slowly, imperceptibly, she had become invisible. A person people saw but didn't really notice. The gas station attendant who filled tanks, the girl at the coffee shop who made lattes, the young woman who cleaned offices after everyone went home. Always there, but never really seen. Always working, but never recognized. And maybe Mia thought sometimes about the slow nights at the gas station when the parking lot was empty and the world was quiet. Maybe that was okay. Maybe being invisible was safe. It meant no one judged her. No one had expectations. No one could disappoint her because no one was close enough to try. It was lonely. God, it was lonely. But it was manageable. But then that black SUV pulled up at pump 3. And the man moved a heavy suitcase and made eye contact and smiled. And Mia's invisibility, that thing that had kept her safe, evaporated because she had seen. And being seen, in that context, was more dangerous than anything. And when the FBI arrested her, when they accused her of complicity, Mia's strategy of being invisible backfired. Because who would defend someone no one really knew? Who would fight for a girl who had no friends, no connections, no one besides her elderly grandmother who barely spoke English? The system saw Mia and saw nothing. They saw an insignificant person. No powerful family. No expensive lawyer. Numegia noisy. Perfect to blame. Perfect to sacrifice. Perfect to process quickly and forget. And the FBI? The FBI saw what they wanted to see. They saw a young woman working a minimum wage job. They saw a suspicious money deposit. And they took the blame because it was easier than a real investigation. It was easier than admitting that perhaps an innocent witness had been framed by the network they were supposedly hunting. The public defender assigned to Mia barely looked at the case. He had a caseload of 200 cases. He didn't have time for a real investigation. So he looked at the evidence superficially and said, "Accept a plea deal. Guilty plea. 5 years, out in 3 with good behavior. It's better than you can wait." But Mia wasn't guilty. And the idea of pleading guilty, of accepting punishment for a crime she didn't commit, of having a permanent criminal record, destroying any chance of being a nurse, was unthinkable. So she refused. And the lawyer was frustrated. "You're making it worse for yourself. The jury will see the evidence, they'll convict. And then you'll get 10, 15 years. Be smart." But how can you be smart by admitting to a lie? How can you accept destroying your future for the convenience of the system? Mia didn't know. And she was alone trying to figure it out. Alone in her cell. Alone in terror that the life she had worked so hard to build was ending before it had even truly begun. Until Nathan appeared. Until a man with a badge and kind eyes sat down and said, "I believe you." And for the first time since her parents died, Mia wasn't alone. She had someone fighting for her. Someone who saw not convenient invisibility, but a real person. A person who deserved justice. And that recognition changed everything. Comment below. When you work hard, live right, and yet the system decides you're disposable enough to be a scapegoat, how do you not lose faith in everything? Now, I want to delve even deeper into this subject, because the way the system failed Mia wasn't just passive negligence. It was the active construction of a narrative. It was taking an innocent person and transforming her into a criminal through assumptions, prejudices, and a rush to resolution that didn't care about the truth. And it began the moment the FBI decided Mia was a suspect instead of a witness. The investigation, if you could call it, that was superficial from the start. Agent Morrison, the man leading the case, had a history of quick closures, of clean cases that made the numbers look good. And when a black SUV was tracked, when trafficked girls were found in a warehouse 50 miles from Millbrook, when the main traffickers fled, Morrison needed someone to arrest. Someone connected but vulnerable enough not to fight back. And the gas station's security cameras showed exactly that. Showed an SUV stopping. They showed a man moving a suitcase. And they showed Mia watching through the window. The FBI analyzed the footage and constructed a narrative. Mia saw, Mia recognized the operation, and Mia didn't call the police. Therefore, Mia was an accomplice. Logic was flawed. People witness crimes every day and don't report them out of fear, out of not knowing what they're seeing, for 1,000 reasons that don't include complicity. But the FBI wasn't interested in nuance. They were interested in arrest. And when they discovered a $500 deposit in Mia's account 2 days after the incident, the case was closed in their minds. The transformation from accidental witness to convicted criminal happened in hours of superficial investigation. $500, Morrison said at a press conference, deposited into the suspect's bank account exactly 48 hours after a confirmed meeting with known members of a trafficking network. We believe it was payment for silence, for not reporting what she witnessed. Reporters took notes, cameras recorded, and the narrative was established. It didn't matter that Mia had no knowledge of that deposit. It didn't matter that no one asked where the money came from. It didn't matter that a person working 3 jobs to pay for college had no reason to risk everything for a measly $500. The narrative was convenient, and convenience trumped truth. The media seized the story and ran with it, because it was a perfect story for the news cycle. Gas station employee arrested for complicity in human trafficking network. Headlines screamed. Articles painted a picture. Mia Chen, 22, working the night shift at an isolated gas station, was being paid to allow traffickers to use the location as a stopping point. The impact of that news coverage was immediate and devastating. The community college where Mia studied issued a statement. Mia Chen has been suspended, pending resolution of criminal charges. We take student safety extremely seriously, as if Mia were a threat, as if her presence on campus put others in danger, as if accusation were equivalent to guilt. Professors who had praised her work, who had said she had a bright future, fell silent. They didn't defend her. They didn't question her. They just accepted the narrative, because it was easier. Because fighting for a student accused of complicity in human trafficking wasn't a battle they wanted to fight. Mia's jobs were lost one by one. A gas station fired her immediately. Association with criminal activity. A cafe waited 2 days. But then the manager called. Sorry, Mia, but customers are uncomfortable. We need to let you go. The cleaning company didn't even have the decency to call. They just sent an email. Your services are no longer needed. And so, in a week, Mia lost not only her freedom but all means of support. All the stability she had struggled to build. But worse than losing jobs was what happened to her grandmother, Mei Chen, a 70-year-old woman who had immigrated decades ago, who barely understood the American legal system, who only knew that her granddaughter was in jail, was surrounded. Reporters appeared at the apartment, banging on the door, shouting questions in English that Mei barely understood. Mrs. Chen, did you know what your granddaughter was involved in? Mrs. Chen, any comments on the charges? Mrs. Chen, how could you have failed to see the signs? Mei didn't know what to say. She didn't know how to answer. So she closed the door, locked it, and stayed inside, curtains drawn, terrified by the world that had turned against her family. The revelation of just how completely isolated Mia had become came when she tried to make calls from prison. She called classmates. No one answered. She left messages. None were returned. She tried her favorite professor, Dr. Sarah Williams, who had said, "You have a gift for this, Mia. Don't give up." The secretary answered, "Dr. Williams is unavailable. Could you ask her to call me back? It's important. I'll leave a message." The message was never passed on. She called neighbors, people she'd seen for years, who had known her parents, who had always been friendly. "I'm sorry, Mia. We can't get involved. But I didn't do anything. I just..." Click. Deadline. Person after person. Door after door. Closed. Because Mia was no longer a person. She was accused. She was headline news. She was a risk no one wanted to take. And the public defender, Thomas Green, a man in his 50s with a worn briefcase and tired eyes, finally came to see her 3 days after her arrest. "Sorry for the delay. I have a heavy caseload." He sat down. He opened a thin file with her name on it. "Okay, Mia Chen. Complicity in human trafficking. The evidence is, well, it's quite damaging. You're on video. Deposit in your account. The FBI is confident about a conviction, but I didn't do anything. I didn't know what was in that suitcase. I didn't know about the money in my account. Someone planted it. I understand it's hard to accept, but the jury will see the evidence. And the evidence is compelling. Then investigate. Find out where the money came from. Talk to people who know me. Prove I wasn't involved." Thomas sighed. The kind of sigh that says, "I've had this conversation 1,000 times. Mia, I have 200 active cases. I don't have the resources for private investigation. I don't have time to interview every person who knows you. I work with what I have, and what I have suggests that the best option is a plea bargain." A plea bargain meaning pleading guilty. Yes, the prosecution is offering 5 years, plus 3 with good behavior. Considering you could get 10 or 15 if you go to trial and a jury convicts you. It's a generous offer. But I'll be a convicted criminal. I'll never be able to be a nurse. I'll never be able to. You'll never be able to if you're serving 15 years too. At least with a plea bargain, you'll eventually get out. You rebuild your life. What kind of life with a criminal record for human trafficking? Mia felt panic rising. How is it rebuilding when everyone thinks I helped traffickers? Mia's journey through those first days in prison was one of denial leading to despair. Because she began to realize the truth didn't matter. It didn't matter that she was innocent. The system wasn't built to uncover the truth. The system was built to process cases, to move numbers, to close files. And she, a person without resources, without a voice, without a defender, would be processed. She would be a number. She would be a statistic. And protesting, insisting on innocence, only prolonged the inevitable. Or at least that's what everyone said. But Mia couldn't. She couldn't plead guilty to a crime she didn't commit. She couldn't give up on the dream she had fought so hard to achieve. She couldn't accept that life ended like this. So, she refused a plea deal. And Thomas was frustrated. "You're making a mistake. The jury will see the evidence. They'll convict you. And then you'll get the maximum sentence. And for what? Pride." "Truth," Mia said. "It's not pride. It's truth. And if no one will fight for the truth, if the system just wants to prosecute me and move on, then at least I won't make it easy by pleading guilty." "You're an idiot," Thomas said. Not cruelly, but as a fact. The system doesn't care about truth. The system cares about efficiency. And you're in the way. And he was right. The system didn't care. The FBI had closed Mia's investigation as solved. The prosecution was preparing the case. The media had moved on to the next story. And Mia was alone in a cell, awaiting a trial everyone said she would lose. Awaiting conviction for a crime she didn't commit. Awaiting her life to end at 22, until Nathan Cross appeared. Until the man with a badge and a conscience decided to do what the system didn't. To truly investigate. To look beyond superficial evidence. To see Mia not as a convenient suspect, but as a person. As a witness. As a victim being sacrificed to solve the case quickly. And when Nathan said, "I believe you," when he promised to prove his innocence. Mia felt something she hadn't felt since her parents died. Hope, not naive hope, that everything would be alright, but hope that maybe, just maybe, someone would fight for her. Someone would see injustice and not accept it. Someone would care enough to do things differently. And that hope, however fragile, was what kept Mia going. It was what prevented total despair from consuming her. Because if Nathan believed, if Nathan was willing to investigate when no one else was, then maybe the truth mattered after all. Maybe the system could be forced to see. Maybe she wasn't as alone as she thought. Now I want to delve even deeper into this subject, because the reason Nathan Cross noticed what the FBI didn't wasn't just experience or professional instinct. It was personal history. It was carrying the weight of having lost someone vulnerable before. And it was a promise he had made to himself to never again let the system trample on innocent people for convenience. Nathan was 52 years old, 28 years in law enforcement. He started as a patrolman, worked his way up to deputy, then detective, and finally elected sheriff. He had seen a lot. Cases he solved, cases that haunted him, and one case in particular that changed how he viewed his work. His own daughter's case. Sarah Cross was 17 when she started using, first marijuana, then pills, then heroin. And Nathan, absorbed in work, didn't see the signs until it was too late. Until Sarah was so deeply addicted that intervention seemed impossible. He tried. God knows he tried. Rehab, therapy, tough love, nothing worked. And at 21, Sarah died of an overdose in a cheap motel bathroom. Nathan found the body. He was the one who answered the call. He didn't know until he arrived that it was his daughter. And that image, that vision of Sarah cold and blue on the dirty floor, never left him. He carried guilt. Guilt for having worked too much, for not having paid attention, for having assumed that Sarah would be okay because he was busy saving strangers while his own daughter was dying. Nathan's transformation after Sarah's death was profound, because he realized something. He had been so focused on following rules, closing cases, doing the job correctly that he had lost the reason he started. He had lost his humanity. He had begun to see people as cases, as numbers, as problems to solve. And when his daughter really needed him as a father, he wasn't there. He was being sheriff, and his badge didn't save Sarah. So Nathan made a promise that from then on, he would pay attention, not just to the evidence, but to people, to vulnerability, to moments where the system was about to run someone over, convenience. And when he saw the news about Mia Chen, his instinct kicked in, because something didn't add up. The FBI had arrested Mia as an accomplice, but Nathan knew that gas station had stop and go on Highway 47. It was technically under his jurisdiction, and he knew the manager, Rick Donovan. He'd responded to calls there before. Nothing serious, petty theft, occasional vandalism, but Rick had always been slippery, the kind of person who had quick answers, who avoided eye contact. Nathan instinctively didn't trust. So why did the FBI arrest the shift worker, but not the manager? Why did they focus on a 22-year-old girl with no record, but ignore the person who actually had control over the place? It didn't make sense. Unless the FBI was looking for a quick resolution. Unless Mia was an easy target. And Rick probably had a lawyer. Probably had connections. Probably knew how to navigate the system in ways Mia didn't. Nathan went to the station. Unofficially, the FBI had jurisdiction, so technically it wasn't his case. But as a local sheriff, he had the right to ask questions, to understand what happened in his territory. Rick was behind the counter when Nathan entered. "Sheriff Cross, what can I do for you?" "Terrible situation with Mia." "How long did you work with her?" 8 months or so. "Good worker." "Shocking that she was involved in, what they accuse her of." Rick's voice was casual, but Nathan saw sweat on his forehead. Saw how his hands trembled slightly as he picked up a cup of coffee. "Did the FBI review the security footage?" Yes, they took everything. They said it shows Mia watching when the drug dealers stopped. Can I see the backup? I know the system makes automatic copies to an external server. I don't know if I can do that without FBI authorization. The impact of that hesitation, not wanting Nathan to see the footage, confirmed his suspicion. There was something there that Rick didn't want discovered. I can get a warrant, Nathan said. Or you can cooperate with local law enforcement and show me. Your choice. Rick hesitated. But a warrant would mean more scrutiny, more questions. So he relented. Okay. But only because I want to help. He took Nathan to a small office in the back. He pulled up footage from the night in question. Nathan watched. He saw the SUV arrive. He saw men. He saw the suitcase. And he saw Mia. And he immediately noticed what the FBI had either missed or chosen to ignore. Mia's expression when she saw the suitcase being moved wasn't recognition. It was confusion. It was that expression people make when they see something out of the ordinary but don't understand the context. Like seeing someone carrying a sofa in the rain strange, but not necessarily sinister. And then the man made eye contact with Mia and smiled. And Mia recoiled. A subtle but clear movement. She didn't nod. She didn't confirm. She recoiled. Like someone who saw something that made her uncomfortable. Like a frightened witness, not an accomplice. Do you see that? Nathan said, pausing the video. What? How she recoils. Her body language isn't that of someone recognizing a partner. It's that of someone seeing a threat. The FBI didn't think so. They said she clearly saw it and didn't report it. So she must be involved. Or she was scared. Or she didn't understand what she saw. There are 1,000 reasons not to report that don't include complicity. Nathan looked at Rick. Were you here that night? No. Her shift. I work alone at night. Then how did the money get into her account? Rick froze. Watt Tower. What? $500. The FBI says it was deposited into her account as payment. But Mia says she knows nothing about it. So someone deposited it without her knowledge. Someone with access to her bank information. Nathan leaned forward. Bank information that you have. For payroll processing. Are you accusing me? I'm observing. That you're the only person with motive and means to incriminate Mia. And you're too nervous for someone with nothing to hide. The revelation that Nathan wasn't accepting the official narrative that he was actually investigating made Rick panic. I need you out. Now. I don't have to answer questions without a lawyer. Interesting. Because innocent people usually want to cooperate. Want to help a coworker being unjustly accused. But you want a lawyer. Nathan left the station. But he didn't go away. He stayed in the parking lot, watching. And 20 minutes later, Rick came out. Not through the front door. The back door. He looked around nervously. And made a call. Nathan couldn't hear. But he saw body language. He saw agitation. He saw fear. And he knew Rick was involved. And he was calling someone. Warning that the local sheriff was asking questions. Nathan went back to the station. He started making calls. He used connections. And he discovered something interesting. Rick Donovan had a history. Not criminal, nothing, that showed up on a standard check. But civil. Multiple lawsuits for unpaid debts. Seizures. And 6 months ago, suddenly all the debts were paid. $25,000 in debt, eliminated. Nathan knew that pattern. He knew it well. Someone had paid Rick. In exchange for something. In exchange for access. In exchange for a safe place where a drug trafficking network could stop without being reported. Nathan's journey from suspicion to certainty accelerated. He dug deeper. He checked traffic camera footage near the gas station, and he found something. The same SUV had stopped there 4 times in the last 3 months, always night shifts. But 3 of those times, it wasn't Mia's shift. It was Rick's night shift. Rick, who said he only worked day shifts. Rick, who had lied. Nathan had enough now. Enough to confront, enough to pressure. So he returned to the gas station. This time, not asking. Demanding. Rick Donovan, I need You two come with me to answer questions officially. About what? About the $25,000 you received 6 months ago. About the SUV that stopped here 4 times. About you working night shifts that you didn't report. About you incriminating an innocent employee. I don't know what you're talking about. Then you won't. Mind coming to explain this officially? With the recorder on, the prosecutor present, and Rick cornered, did what guilty people do. He tried to escape, but Nathan was blocking the door. And when Rick tried to push his way through, Nathan restrained him. Rick Donovan, you're under arrest for obstruction of justice. And when I'm done investigating, I bet I'll find a lot more. And in the car on the way to the police station, Rick broke down. Not completely. Not a full confession. But enough. They paid me, okay? They paid me to keep quiet, not to report when they stopped me. I didn't know exactly what they were transporting. I just knew it was illegal, and I needed the money. And Mia, I wasn't supposed to be working that night. It was supposed to be my shift. But I switched at the last minute, and then she saw. And they said they needed someone to blame. Someone the FBI would believe was involved. So I gave them her bank information. I let them deposit money. And you destroyed an innocent woman's life. She doesn't matter. Rick exploded. She's nobody. No family. No connections. Perfect for sacrifice. Nathan finished. Cold voice. For throwing to the wolves to save her own skin. And Nathan, driving back to the precinct with Rick handcuffed in the back seat, thought about Sarah. About how the system had failed her. About how he had failed her. And he made a silent promise. He wouldn't fail Mia. He wouldn't let another vulnerable young woman be destroyed because it was convenient. Because it didn't matter to the right people. He would fight. Even if it meant going against the FBI. Even if it meant risking professional relationships. Because his badge meant nothing if he didn't use it to protect the very people the system was most eager to discard. And Mia Chen, a girl who worked 3 jobs and dreamed of being a nurse, and had the terrible misfortune of witnessing a crime, deserved someone fighting for her. She deserved real justice, not the convenient version the FBI was selling. Comment below. When you see injustice happening and everyone around you accepts it because it's easier, is it still possible to do things differently, or does the system always win? Now I want to delve even deeper into this matter, because the moment Nathan went to the prison to see Mia wasn't just the next step in the investigation. It was a conscious decision to cross the line, to stop being an observer and become an advocate. To put the weight of his badge behind someone the system had decided was expendable. And it was the beginning of a connection that would change them both in ways they didn't expect. Nathan arrived at the county jail on a Thursday afternoon, a gray and ugly facility where people awaited trial or transfer, where innocence was technically presumed but treatment said otherwise. He identified himself at reception. Sheriff Cross. I'm here to see detainee Mia Chen. The guard looked up. About a federal case? I thought the FBI had jurisdiction. They are. But the crime occurred in my county. Doing follow-up, it wasn't a lie. But it wasn't the whole truth either. Because Nathan wasn't officially there. He was there because he couldn't let the case go. Because I had seen footage. He had arrested Rick. And there was a partial confession. But I needed to hear it from Mia. I needed to look into her eyes and confirm what my instinct already told me. She was innocent. Mia was brought into the visiting room. A small space with a metal table and 2 chairs. No windows. Fluorescent lights buzzing. She was wearing an orange prison uniform. Her hair was pulled back, deep dark circles under her eyes. And when she saw an Athena man she didn't know, with a badgie, she tensed. Because a badge had only meant trouble until now. Mia Chen. I'm Sheriff Nathan Cross. Nathan sat down. He placed his folder on the table. I came to ask some questions about the night in question. The transformation in Mia's expression went from tension to exhaustion. I've told everything. To the FBI, to the lawyer, to everyone, and nobody believes me. Why would you be any different? Her voice was flat, emotionless, like someone who had cried so much she had no tears left. Maybe I'll believe you, if you tell me. They said they saw footage, that they saw me looking, that I didn't report it. So I must be involved. That's what everyone says. Footage shows you looking, but it also shows how you reacted when that man made eye contact. You recoiled. It wasn't the reaction of an accomplice recognizing a partner. It was the reaction of a frightened witness seeing something they didn't understand. Mia finally looked up, really looked, studying Nathan's face, searching for what? Sincerity, or just more disappointment. I saw them, she said slowly. 3 men, black SUV. One went to the bathroom, another filled up the tank, and the third, he opened the back door and pulled out a suitcase. Big, heavy, and I thought it was strange because who travels with such a large suitcase in the middle of the night? But I thought maybe just travelers, maybe just passing through. And when he looked at you, he smiled, but it wasn't a friendly smile. It was like a warning, like you saw this and you should forget about it. And I knew that whatever was in that suitcase wasn't good. So I looked away. I pretended to be busy. I waited for them to leave, because I didn't want trouble. I just wanted to finish my shift and go home. Her voice broke. And now I have more trouble than I ever imagined. The impact of hearing her story, not from a report, but from the person confirmed everything for Nathan. Because there was truth in how Mia spoke. Truth in specific details. Truth in raw emotion. And money. Nathan asked, gently. $500 deposited into your account. I don't know anything about that. I swear. I work 3 jobs. I make small deposits, $20 here, $50 there. I've never had $500 at once to deposit. And when the FBI told me, I thought it was a mistake. Some banking error. But it wasn't, was it? Someone put it there, to frame me. Yes, and I think I know who. Nathan opened a folder. He showed a picture of Rick Donovan, your manager. Do you trust him? I never thought much about him. He was just my boss. A little strange, but why? Because Rick confessed he was paid by a drug trafficking ring not to report when they stopped him at the checkpoint. And when you accidentally testified, when you became a potential problem, he framed you. Deposited money into your account using bank information he had from your payroll. He made you a scapegoat. Mia stood motionless, processing. My boss, Rick, did this. Why? I never did anything to him. Because you were convenient. Because you don't have powerful connections. Because the system would believe you were involved. And because he needed to protect himself. The revelation that the person who should have been a trustworthy employer had deliberately destroyed her life was devastating. So he used me. He sacrificed me. And I lost everything: jobs, school, freedom because of him. Yes. And it's an injustice I can't let stand. Nathan leaned forward. Mia, I believe you. I don't just think you might be innocent. I know you are, and I'm going to prove it. I'm going to make sure the FBI sees the truth, that the prosecutor drops the charges, that you're freed. Tears filled Mia's eyes. It was the first time since her arrest that someone in authorities, someone who mattered, had said those words. Why? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Why do you care? You don't know me. I'm nobody. You're nobody. You're a person who works 3 jobs to pay for college, who takes care of her grandmother, who dreams of being a nurse, who had the terrible misfortune of witnessing a crime and is being punished for it. And that's wrong. Fundamentally wrong. Nathan paused, because the next few words were personal. They were truths he didn't often share. I had a daughter, Sarah. She died 7 years ago. Overdose, and I failed her. I was so focused on work, on following rules, and being a good sheriff that I didn't see when she needed a father. And ever since, I've carried guilt. And I promised I wouldn't let the system run over another vulnerable person. Not on my shift. Not when I can do something about it. Mia looked at him with newfound understanding. So, you're doing this for your daughter? Out of guilt? No, Nathan said firmly. I'm doing it for you, because you deserve justice. Sarah taught me to pay attention, to see people, not just cases. And when I look at you, I see a person who needs someone to fight, and I'm going to be that someone. The emotional journey in that room, the connection forming between the 52-year-old sheriff carrying guilt and the 22-year-old carrying injustice was profound, because both recognized something essential in each other. Mia saw not a savior on a white horse, saw a flawed person trying to do better, who understood failure, who wasn't judging. And Nathan saw not a passive victim. He saw a fighter. He saw someone who refused to accept a deal, even when everyone else said so, who maintained integrity even at the cost of everything. What happens now? Mia asked. Now I'm working on getting you released. Bail hearing is tomorrow. Bail is set at $50,000. Can you pay? No, not even close. I don't have anything. Pay what? No, you can't. You don't know me. What if I run away? You'd lose everything. You're not going to run away. Because you're not the type of person who runs. You're the type who stays and fights. And besides, it's not bail. It's supervised custody. You're under my supervision. In my house. Until the trial is resolved. That's, Sheriff Cross. That's a lot. Why would you do that? Because it's the right thing to do. And because nobody else will. Nathan stood up. The hearing is tomorrow at 10 in the morning. I'll be there. And I'll make sure the judge understands that you're not a flight risk. That you're a witness being pursued, not a criminal. And then we'll work on clearing your name completely. He paused at the door. Mia, I know you've been through hell. I know trust has been broken repeatedly. But I promise, I won't fail you. Not like the system failed. Not like Rick failed. I'll be here. Until it's over. And Mia, watching him leave, felt something she hadn't felt in weeks. Hope. Not naive hope, but hope grounded in real action. In someone who had done more in days than all others had in weeks. In someone who saw her. Really saw her. The bail hearing the next morning was tense. The prosecutor argued that Mia was a flight risk. That the evidence was strong. That she should remain detained. But Nathan testified. He testified about his investigation. About Rick's arrest. About the confession. And about how Mia wasn't an accomplice but a witness being. The judge, an older woman named Margaret Lawson, listened attentively. Sheriff Cross, are you saying you're willing to take custody of Ms. Chen? Yes, Your Honor. Under my supervision, at my home. I guarantee she will attend all hearings. That's highly irregular, but not without precedent. And given the circumstances, specifically that Ms. Chen is apparently a victim of framing, not a perpetrator, I think justice demands an exception. The judge studied Mia, studied Nathan, made a decision. Very well. Mia Chen is released into the custody of Sheriff Nathan Cross. She will reside at his residence. She will attend all scheduled hearings. Any violation will result in immediate detention without bail. Understood? Yes, Your Honor, Mia said, her voice trembling. Because she couldn't believe it. She couldn't believe she was being released. That she wouldn't go back to her cell. That she had someone. She had Nathan who had fought for her and won. Mia was processed and released 2 hours later. And when she walked out of jail, when she saw sunlight for the first time in weeks, when she saw Nathan waiting with his truck, she broke down. Not dramatically, she just stopped and cried. And Nathan, understanding, didn't rush her. He just stood there, a solid presence, until she was ready. Thank you, she finally said, for believing, for fighting, for seeing me. You don't need to thank me out of basic decency, Nathan said, but I accept. And Mia, I know difficult days are coming. The investigation isn't over. The network is still operating. And you're a witness who can identify them, so there will be danger. But I promise, you won't face it alone. Not anymore. And Mia, looking at the man who had become an unlikely ally, felt something changing. She felt a foundation of trust being built. And although she didn't know it yet, that trust would become something more. Not immediate, romance. She was too young, he too old, the wrong dynamic, but a paternal connection. Protection she hadn't had since her parents died. And for Nathan, a chance to do things right, to protect someone vulnerable, to honor Sarah's memory by doing for Mia what he hadn't done for his own daughter. And together, they would face whatever came. A trafficking network that wanted to silence her. An FBI that didn't want to admit its mistakes. A system that resisted correction. They would face everything. Because now, Mia wasn't alone. And that made all the difference. Now, I want to delve even deeper into this subject. Because Mia's release didn't bring relief or safety. It brought escalation. It brought the attention of people who had a lot to lose if she testified. And it brought the terrifying realization that framing her had only been the first step in a larger plan. A plan that ended with her dead. The first sign came the afternoon Mia was released. Nathan took her to his house, a 2-story house, in the suburbs of Millbrook, white picket fence, manicured, lawn, the kind of place that seemed safe. He showed her the guest room. It's yours for as long as you need it. Lock the door if you want, but you're safe here. Mia looked around. Simple room, single bed, dresser, window overlooking the backyard. The first private space she'd had in weeks. Thank you for everything. I don't know how I'm going to. You don't need to know now. Just rest. Take a shower. Eat something. We'll worry about the rest later. Mia took a shower, her first real shower. Not a quick prison shower, in weeks. And when she came out, when she came downstairs, wearing clean clothes Nathan had gotten from a local donation, she saw him in the kitchen making dinner. I hope you like pasta. I'm not a chef, but I can make a few things. It was an attempt at normalcy, at making the moment seem less strange than it was, sheriff harboring an accused witness. But Mia appreciated it. Pasta is perfect. They ate in comfortable silence, and Mia began to relax. She began to think that maybe, just maybe, the worst was over, until her phone vibrated. A message from an unknown number. No name, just, you saw it, you speak, you die. Mia froze. Phone falling from her hand, falling to the floor with a cracking plastic sound. The transformation on her face was immediate. From relaxation to absolute terror. Nathan saw it. What happened? He picked up his phone. He read the message, and his face hardened. When did you receive this? Now. Literally now. Her voice trembled. How do they have my number? How do they know I'm here? I don't know, but we'll find out. Nathan picked up his own phone. He started making calls. To the department, to contacts, tracing the message's origin. Meanwhile, he checked the house. Windows, doors, the security system that had been deactivated for years. He called back, checked the perimeter, and told Mia, stay away from windows until we know what we're dealing with. But the warning came too late, because 15 minutes later, while Nathan was on the phone with a technical analyst trying to trace the number, a car drove past the house, slowly, deliberately, and then, pop, 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 3 shots, through the living room window. Glass shattered. Mia screamed. Nathan tackled her, covering her body with his. Stay down. More shots. 4 or 5. And then the sound of a car speeding away, fleeing into the night. Nathan waited. Counted 10 seconds. 20. Then cautiously stood up. Are you hurt? No. But you. There was blood on Nathan's cheek. A cut from flying glass. Not serious, but bleeding. I'm okay. Stay here. I'll check. Nathan pulled out his gun. He went to the broken window. He looked outside. The street was empty. The car was gone. But the message had been delivered. Clear, brutal. They didn't hit anyone, not this time, but they could have. And next time they might not miss. He called the department. Shooting at my residence. Multiple shots fired. Suspects fled. I need units here. now. And then he went back to Mia. He found her still on the ground, trembling, not from cold, from shock. Hey, look at me. Nathan knelt down. He took her hands. You're safe. They're gone. And they're not coming back today. They'll wait. But we're prepared now. They tried to kill us, Mia said. Her voice was flat, as if she couldn't process it. They shot at your house. Because of me. Because you helped me. It's not your fault. It's theirs. The network that's trying to silence witnesses. But they won't succeed, I promise. But Nathan knew that promise was harder to keep now, because it had escalated from threat to actual violence. And next time could be lethal. Deputies arrived. They collected evidence, bullets, glass. They took pictures, and Deputy Marcus Carcina, man Nathan had mentored years ago, pulled Nathan aside for a private conversation. Sheriff, with all due respect, what are you doing? You sheltered a federal witness, and now a trafficking network is targeting you. Your house was shot at. You could have died. The impact of that realization that Nathan had put his own life at risk was clear on Marcus's face. I know what I'm doing, Nathan said. I'm protecting an innocent witness whose system failed. But at what cost? Your safety, your life. Sheriff, you have a responsibility to the department, to the community. You can't throw it all away for one person. I can, if that person is innocent and is being hunted, and I will. You're stubborn, Marcus said, but there was admiration mixed with frustration. Always have been. But Sheriff, if something happens to you, if the network succeeds, I don't know if I can follow you in this. I don't know if the department can. I'm not asking you to follow. I'm doing what my conscience demands. And if the department has a problem with it, we'll deal with it later. But the problem didn't just come from the department. It came from the FBI. Agent Morrison showed up the next morning. I heard about the shooting, and about you harboring Ms. Chen under court order, supervised custody, which puts you in danger and complicates our investigation. We need her in witness protection, where we can guarantee her safety. Witness protection. You arrested her as a suspect, not as a witness. And you only changed the narrative when evidence forced you to. We made a mistake. We acknowledge it, but now we're correcting it. And the way to correct it is to put her under our protection, not yours. She stays with me, Nathan said. Tom didn't allow for argument, at least until the charges are formally dropped. Until her name is cleared. Until you publicly admit that you framed an innocent woman. You're being impossible. I'm being protective. There's a difference. The revelation of just how alone Nathan and Mia were came that afternoon. When Nathan went to check on Mia's grandmother, Mei Chen, who had been alone in her apartment since Mia's arrest. When he knocked on the door, Mei hesitated before opening it. And when she did, Nathan saw fear on her face. Mrs. Chen? I'm Sheriff Cross. I came to check if you're all right. Mei looked at him suspiciously. She didn't speak much English, but she understood danger. Where's Mia? Safe with me. But I need to know, did anyone come here? Asking about her. Mei nodded slowly. Men. Yesterday. Knocking on the door. Asking where Mia was. What did you say? Nothing. I don't know anything, but they're frightening, her eyes filled with tears. Mia in danger. Mia is safe. I promise. But Mrs. Chen, you could be too. Those men, they could come back. Nathan made his decision in the moment. Grab a few things. You're coming with me. Stay with Mia, where I can protect you both. But the apartment, it'll be here when it's safe to return. But right now, safety is more important. Mei hesitated, but she saw sincerity in Nathan's face, and she agreed. Nathan took Mei home, and when Mia saw her grandmother, when she hugged her for the first time in weeks, she broke down. She cried on Mei's shoulder, and Mei, a small but strong woman who had survived immigration and loss and poverty, held her granddaughter and said in Mandarin, "You are safe now. This good man, he protects." Nathan didn't understand the words, but he understood the feeling. and he felt the weight of responsibility. Because now, he wasn't just protecting Mia, he was protecting May too. Two vulnerable people against a network that had resources, connections, and no hesitation about violence. The next few days were spent in constant surveillance. Nathan installed security cameras. He reinforced the locks. He kept a gun close at hand at all times. And he didn't leave the house unless absolutely necessary. Mia and May stayed inside. Curtains closed. Life on pause. But the network hadn't stopped. It had only changed tactics. Messages continued. Not to Mia's phone, Athen had changed her number. But to Nathan, give up. Hand over. The girl, or everyone dies. Nathan didn't reply. He just documented it and increased security. But he knew he couldn't live like this indefinitely. He couldn't keep Mia and May prisoners in their own home. He needed a solution. He needed the FBI to really act, to really dismantle the network. Not just arrest pawns, but leaders. And while the FBI operated at bureaucratic speed, the network operated at predator speed, and the clock was ticking. And then came the final escalation. It came on a Tuesday night. Nathan was reviewing case files when he heard a sound. Glass breaking, not from the front, from the back. He pulled out his gun. Mia May, bedroom, lock the door, now. He ran to the kitchen and saw a broken back window and a man climbing through. Nathan didn't hesitate. Stop. Police. The man froze. He saw a gun pointed at him and smiled. The same smile Mia had described. A smile that said, "You see something you shouldn't. Sheriff Cross, I heard about you. Hero protecting. A girl, noble, but an idiot. Get out, now, or I'll shoot. I could. But there are more of me out there. And if something happens to me, they'll come, all of them. And they won't stop until the girl is dead. Then it'll be war. No, it'll be a massacre. Because you're a man, and we're an organization. Think about it." And the man slowly retreated. He left through the window. He disappeared into the night. And Nathan stood there. Gun still raised, heart pounding. Because the threat wasn't empty. It was a promise. And Nathan knew he had entered a war he couldn't win alone. He needed help. He needed the FBI to stop being an obstacle and become an ally. He needed the system finally working as it should. Because Mia, young woman, who had accidentally witnessed a crime, who had been unjustly framed, who deserved justice, couldn't live as a fugitive. And Nathan wasn't going to leave her. Even if it meant fighting an entire organization. Even if it meant risking everything. Because some battles are worth fighting. And protecting the innocent from a failed system and criminals who hunted her. That was the battle that defined who Nathan was. Comment below, when protecting an innocent person means going to war against an entire organization. Is it still a duty or just noble suicide? Now, I want to delve even deeper into this matter, because Nathan's decision to continue protecting Mia was not taken lightly. It was made knowing exactly what it would cost. Knowing that he was putting his career, reputation, and possibly freedom at risk. And it was made because sometimes, doing the right thing means challenging the very institutions that supposedly exist to serve justice. The confrontation with the FBI came the morning after the break-in. Agent Morrison showed up with 2 other agents, not asking for entry, demanding it. "Sheriff Cross, we need to talk." Officially, Nathan let them in. But he didn't offer coffee. He didn't offer courtesy. Because he knew what was coming. Ms. Chen needs to be placed under federal protection. Immediately. "She is under protection," Nathan replied. "Mine. Your protection isn't enough. The house was shot at an attempted break-in. You don't have the resources to protect her against an organized network. And you do. Because so far, the only resource I've seen from the FBI is arresting an innocent woman and calling her an accomplice. Forgive me if I don't trust your competence." The impact of those words, a local sheriff defying federal authority, was visible. Morrison blushed. "Careful, Sheriff. You're talking to a federal agent. and you're obstructing the investigation. I'm not obstructing. I'm protecting a witness you turned into a suspect, whom you framed for convenience, and whom you now want to put in protection, as if you've earned the right to trust them. We admit our mistake. Ms. Chen was not an accomplice, but that doesn't change the fact that she is a key witness, and she needs to be adequately protected. Then protect her. Here, with your resources, but under my custody, because she trusts me, and she doesn't trust you, and honestly, I don't blame her. Morrison took a deep breath, trying to maintain professional composure. Sheriff Cross, I'll be direct. If you don't hand over Ms. Chen voluntarily, we'll have to take action. We can charge you with obstruction of a federal investigation. We can seek the removal of your badge. We can prosecute you criminally. Then do it. Nathan's tone was firm, without hesitation. But while you're arguing in court, I'll continue protecting Mia, and she remain alive, which is more than you can guarantee. The transformation in the room was palpable, because Morrison realized that Nathan wasn't bluffing. He wasn't posing. He was genuinely willing to sacrifice his career for principle. Why are you doing this? Morrison asked, not as an accusation, as a real question. She's just a witness, just a case. Why risk everything? Because she's not just a witness, she's a person. A 22-year-old person who works 3 jobs and dreams of being a nurse and had the terrible misfortune of witnessing a crime. And the system, your system, my system, completely failed her. You arrested her without proper investigation. You framed her based on superficial evidence. And when the error was exposed, you didn't apologize. You just changed the narrative. So yes, I'm going to risk everything, because a badge means nothing if I don't use it to protect the very people the system is most eager to discard. Morrison was silent for a long moment, and then, you're an idiot, or a saint. I haven't decided which. Neither. Just someone who lost a daughter because the system failed, and I won't let it happen again. Daughter, Sarah. She died of an overdose. The system had multiple chances to intervene, to help, but it was easier to prosecute her for possession than to treat her as a victim of addiction. So she died, and I carried the guilt, and I promised, never again. Nathan's personal history, revelation, changed the dynamic, because Morrison saw not just a stubborn sheriff, he saw a broken father trying to do better. I'm sorry about your daughter, truly, but Sheriff, understand. The network, hunting Ms. Chen, is large, connected, dangerous. We have evidence linking her to politicians, businessmen, even some in law enforcement. That's why the operation is moving slowly. We're building a watertight case, but during this time, Ms. Chen is vulnerable. And you, protecting her, are vulnerable too. So help me. Assign agents to my house. Give me resources, but don't take her. Because the moment you do, the moment you put her in some safe house in another state under a false name, she disappears. She becomes a case. And I need to make sure she remains a person. That she's not just a number in a system. Morrison considered it. And did something Nathan didn't expect. He agreed. Partially okay. Keep her, for now, but under conditions. First, full cooperation with the investigation. Ms. Chen testifies, gives statements, works with a sketch artist. Second, accepts supplemental federal protection. Agents patrolling, cameras, communication equipment. Third, if it threatens to escalate beyond what we can manage, she goes into formal protection. No arguments. Accepted, Nathan said, because it was a compromise, not perfect, but better than alternatives. But Morrison, if you fail again, if something happens to Mia because the investigation is more important than her safety, I'll make sure everyone knows. I'll go to the media. I'll make every failure public. Understood. Understood. And Sheriff, I hope I don't regret this. But his compromise with the FBI didn't solve all of Nathan's problems, because he also had his own department. Deputies who questioned his decisions, a captain who was under pressure from the city council, and a community that was beginning to question. Whether the sheriff, who was harboring a federal witness, was doing his duty or acting unilaterally, Nathan's journey from respected figure to controversial one accelerated. A city council meeting was called, discussing Sheriff Cross's conduct. Nathan knew it was a trap, but he went anyway. The room was full, residents, reporters, and council members who had their own agendas. The council president, a man named Robert Hayes, opened. "Sheriff Cross, thank you for coming. We want to discuss your decision to harbor Mia Chen, a federal witness, in your personal home, while a trafficking network actively hunts her, under the judge's order. Supervised custody, an order that put you in danger. Your house was shot at, an attempted break-in, and now the FBI is involved. Sheriff, with all due respect, this is beyond the scope of your responsibilities. My responsibility is to protect the citizens of this county. Mia Chen is a citizen. She's being hunted. Therefore, protecting her is precisely my responsibility. But at what cost? Department resources are being diverted. Your deputies are concerned about their own safety. And the community is questioning whether you can do your job objectively when you're personally involved. Personally involved, Nathan repeated. I'm professionally committed to justice. There's a difference. You're sheltering her in your home. You're confronting the FBI. You're risking your career. This sounds personal. The impact of the insinuation that Nathan's motivations were inappropriate, his anger, but he maintained a calm tone. If ensuring that an innocent woman isn't killed for witnessing a crime is personal, then I accept the accusation. Because it should be personal for all of us. It should be personal when the system fails. When the innocent are incriminated. When witnesses are hunted. If it's not personal, then what are we doing? Nobody is saying we don't care. We're saying there are protocols, procedures, and you're operating outside of them. Protocols that would have let Mia die. Procedures that unjustly imprisoned her. So, forgive me if I don't blindly trust a system that is already proven to be flawed. Sala fell silent. And Hayes, seeing that the argument wasn't going as planned, changed tactics. Sheriff, nobody is questioning integrity. But there are concerns about judgment. And if we can't trust your judgment, so they can ask for my resignation. They can force a vote. They can do what they need to do. But I'm not going to hand Mia over to appease political concerns. I'm not going to sacrifice her life for administrative convenience. And if it costs me a badge, so be it. Because a badge that comes with a condition of compromising conscience isn't worth wearing. It was a bold statement, but also risky. Because Nathan knew, if the council voted against him, if the community turned against him, his career was over. And then what? What would happen? Who would he be without? The badge that had defined him for almost 3 decades. But looking at Mia sitting in the audience, hands intertwined with her grandmother's, eyes on Nathan, he knew he had made the right choice. Because some things matter more than career. More than a badge. More than convenience. Justice matters. Protecting the vulnerable matters. And doing the right thing even when it's difficult. Even when it costs everything. That matters. The meeting ended without a vote, but with Sheriff Cross's conduct review pending, bureaucratic language for, we're considering removal. Nathan returned home to find Mia waiting on the porch. You shouldn't have done that. You shouldn't have risked your career for me. I didn't risk it for you. I risked it on principle. It seems so, she said, half a smile, the first he'd seen from her. But, thank you. Nobody ever fought like that for me. Then it was about time someone did. And in that moment, in that simple exchange, something solidified between them. Not romance, the dynamic was all wrong for that, but a paternal bond. Protection that Nathan hadn't given Sarah, and gratitude that Mia hadn't felt since her parents died. It was a chosen family, improvised, forged in crisis. But real in a way that blood isn't always. Now I want to delve even deeper into this subject, because the days and weeks that followed that board meeting were when the true nature of Nathan and Mia's relationship was revealed. It wasn't instantaneous. It wasn't dramatic. It was built in small moments of care, in late-night conversations when fear kept sleep away, and the gradual recognition that they had both found in each other something they desperately needed: family. Nathan's house was large for one person. 3 bedrooms, a spacious living room, a kitchen that had clearly been designed for a family but now served only one. He and his wife, Claire, had bought it 20 years ago. They had planned to fill it with children, but children never came. Fertility issues that were never fully resolved. And then Claire was diagnosed with breast cancer at 45. She fought for 2 years and lost. Nathan had been living alone ever since. 3 years of a large, empty house, of rooms I never used, of deafening silence. Work had been his escape, his badge had been his identity, and loneliness had been his constant companion. But now he had Mia, and Maya, grandmother, who spoke little English but whose care for her granddaughter was evident in every gesture. And the house, for the first time in years, had life. It had voices. It had purpose. The transformation in Nathan's routine was gradual. He started waking up earlier. Not because he had to go to work. He was on administrative leave while a conduct review was underway. But because I wanted to make breakfast. Pancakes that May taught him to make Chinese style. Scrambled eggs that Mia preferred without cheese. Strong coffee that he drank and tea that they preferred. Meals became a ritual. Not just eating, but connection. Mia initially ate in silence, as if she didn't want to disturb him, as if her presence was a temporary burden that Nathan was tolerating out of duty. But Nathan didn't let it continue. "Tell me about school," he said one morning. "About what you were studying before." "Before all this." Mia looked up, surprised. "Nursing. I wanted to be a pediatric nurse." "Why?" "Because when my parents died, when I was in the hospital, alone and scared, there was a nurse who sat with me. She didn't have to, but she did. And she said something that kept me going. She said I was going to survive, that I was going to do something good, that I was going to honor my parents by doing things differently. And I believed her." The impact of that story of a young orphan finding purpose in tragedy touched Nathan deeply. "And you were almost there, almost finishing the program, 18 months to go, and now I don't know if I'll finish. The college suspended me. And even if the charges are dropped, even if I'm acquitted, how do I go back? How can I trust a system that abandoned me?" "I don't know," Nathan admitted. "But I know you can't give up on your dream out of fear, out of anger, because then they win. A system that has failed wins. Easy to say when it's not your life falling apart. True. But Mia, look at you. You worked 3 jobs. You took care of your grandmother. You maintained excellent grades. You survived prison. You survived being hunted. You're stronger than you think. And you'll overcome this too." Mia wanted to believe. And something in the way Nathan spoke, not condescending, not infantilizing, but respectful, made her believe. A little, Nathan also shared. Not immediately, but gradually. He told her about Claire. "I met her at the police academy. She was a dispatcher, a calm voice that came through the radio at the worst times. And I fell in love with that voice before I saw her face. When I finally met her in person, I knew I was going to marry her." "How long were you married?" 17 years. "Good years. Not perfect, no marriage is, but good." "She wanted children. I did too, but it didn't happen. And eventually, we stopped trying. We focused on being enough for each other. And were they? Yes. Until cancer. And then everything changed. Because suddenly it wasn't about being enough. It was about surviving. About fighting. And she fought. God, she fought. But it wasn't enough." Nathan's voice broke slightly. "And when she died, when she was gone, I realized I had dedicated so much time to work that I hadn't spent enough time with her. There was always the next case. the next emergency, the next reason to work late, and I can't get that time back. I'm sorry, Mia said. And then, hesitating, is that why you're doing this? For me, out of guilt, not out of guilt. For Claire, because she would have done the same thing. She would have seen injustice and couldn't ignore it, and I want to honor her by doing what she would have done. The emotional journey between them deepened in nightly conversations. When the danger of the day temporarily receded and they could just exist, sitting in the living room, Nathan reviewing case files while Mia studied. He had gotten textbooks from her so he could continue studying, and sometimes they talked. About small things, about TV shows they watched, about food May cooked Chinese, recipes Mia hadn't eaten since she was a child, about plans for the future when it was all over, when it's safe, when the net is shut down. Mia said one night, I want to go back to school, finish the program, get my diploma, and then I want to work at the hospital where my parents died, where that nurse worked, and be a kind person to other scared children. It's going to be amazing, Nathan said, and he believed him, because he had seen her strength. He had seen how she processed trauma, how she didn't completely fall apart when it would have been perfectly justified, how she kept hoping, fighting, surviving, and Mia, hearing his confidence, felt something she hadn't felt since her parents died. Hope that maybe, just maybe, a future was possible. That trauma didn't have to define the rest of her life. That she could build something good from the ashes. May also noticed she didn't speak much English, but she understood dynamics. She saw how Nathan cared for Mia, how it wasn't romantic, he was too old, she too young, completely inappropriate, but paternal, like a father protecting his daughter. And one night, in Mandarin that Mia translated, May said to Nathan, "You're a good man. As Mia's husband, you would have been if they had lived. Thank you for taking care of her." The revelation that May saw Nathan as a substitute father figure for the one Mia had lost was poignant, because Nathan hadn't tried to fill that role. He hadn't presumed it, but he had fallen into it naturally, and it felt right, like honoring Claire, like honoring Sarah, like doing something good when so much had gone wrong. There were moments of lightness too, like when Nathan tried to cook a Chinese recipe and failed spectacularly. May laughed the first time Mia had heard her laugh since prison, and then she took over the kitchen, teaching Nathan with gestures and occasional words while Mia translated, like when Mia tried to teach Nathan how to use social media to connect with the community, to show a human side. And he, who barely knew how to use a smartphone, struggled so obviously that Mia laughed until she cried. Like when they watched a movie together the first time Mia had done something normal, something that wasn't about a case or danger, in months. And she fell asleep on the couch. And Nathan covered her with a blanket and let her sleep because sleep without nightmares was precious. Those were moments that built family, not blood, not legal, but chosen. And, amidst the chaos of being hunted, of a failing system, of constant danger, those moments mattered. They proved that humanity could survive trauma. That connection was possible even in the worst circumstances. And for Mia, they proved something more, that she wasn't alone, that she had someone who cared. Not because you had to care, but because you chose to. And for Nathan, they proved that life after loss was possible. That home didn't have to be a mausoleum of memories, that he could build something new without betraying what he had. That protecting Mia wasn't about trying to replace Sarah, but honoring her memory by doing better, by doing things differently. But while bonds deepened within the home, danger intensified outside, because the FBI had arrested low-ranking members of the network, but the leaders were still free. And they hadn't forgotten Mia. They hadn't given up on silencing her. And while Nathan, Mia, and May built something like a family, the network planned a move that would test everything Nathan had promised to protect. Comment below. When family isn't based on blood, but on a choice made amidst trauma, is it stronger or more fragile than traditional ties? Now, I want to delve even deeper into this matter, because the resolution of Mia's innocence didn't come through the FBI finally doing its job properly. It came through Rick Donovan's confession. And that confession, that admission that he had framed an innocent woman to protect a trafficking operation, forced the system to do what it should have done from the beginning. Look beyond the convenient evidence for the real truth. Nathan had worked the case methodically. Even on administrative leave, even without official access to resources, he had used 28 years of contacts and experience. And when he presented everything ex-confession, financial records showing payments, history of the SUV stopping at gas stations multiple times, the FBI could no longer ignore it. Agent Morrison showed up at Nathan's house one Friday morning. This time without posturing, no threats, just a reluctant acknowledgement of his mistake. "Sheriff Cross, Ms. Chen, we need to talk." They sat in the living room, Mia tense, Nathan cautious, expecting the next blow, based on evidence Sheriff Cross provided, and Richard Donovan's full confession. The Department of Justice is dropping all charges against Mia Chen, officially and publicly. Morrison looked at Mia. "Ms. Chen, on behalf of the FBI, I apologize. We made a mistake. We focused on you as a suspect when we should have seen you as a witness. And that mistake caused tremendous damage, and I regret it." The transformation in Mia's expression went from shock to relief to anger. "You regret it? I spent weeks in jail. I lost jobs. I was suspended from school. I was hunted. And you regret it?" "Yes. And while it doesn't erase what happened, we are committed to doing the right thing now." Doing the right thing would have meant investigating properly from the beginning, Nathan said. It would have meant seeing a young man with no criminal record, no motive, nothing but the bad luck of working when the traffickers stopped. But you didn't see that. Because seeing that would have required real work. You're right. And we take that criticism. But now, we need to focus on the next steps. The network is still operating. And Ms. Chen is a crucial witness. She can identify men who stopped at the gas station. "So you want her to testify?" Mia said. "After arresting me, framing me, almost destroying my life. You want her to help?" "I know it's a lot to ask. But yes. Because without testimony, these men continue operating. They continue trafficking. They continue destroying lives." Mia looked at Nathan, searching for what? Guidance? Permission? He gave her none. He simply said, "It's your choice. No one can force you. But, whatever it is, I'll be by your side." The impact of that statement that Nathan would support her decision regardless gave Mia the courage to speak the truth. "I'll testify. Not for you, but for girls who have been trafficked. Because I know what it's like to be invisible, to be disposable. And if I can prevent that from happening to others, I will." "Thank you," Morrison said. And there was sincerity there. "We'll need you to work with a sketch artist, give a formal statement, and eventually testify at trial. Under protection," Nathan said. "Non-negotiable. Mia will testify, but with security guarantees." "I agree. Agents are already positioned around this property, and when trial comes, you'll have complete protection." But even with promised protection, even with charges dropped, Mia knew danger hadn't passed. It had only changed form. The revelation of just how extensive the network truly was came when the FBI finally shared complete information. Morrison returned 2 days later with a dossier. "The operation we're dismantling is larger than we initially thought. It's not just local trafficking, it's an international network. Thousands of victims over a decade, and leaders have significant resources, political connections, the ability to corrupt officials. That's why we moved so carefully. And that's why they were willing to sacrifice Mia," Nathan said. "Because a scapegoat was easier than confronting the real network. It wasn't a decision we would make now. But yes, there was pressure. Pressure for quick results." Morrison opened the dossier. "We've arrested 17 people so far, low and middle ranks. But 3 key leaders remain free. And it's these three who are funding the hunt for Ms. Chen. So as long as they're free, Mia is in danger. Yes, but we're close. Very close. 2 more weeks, maybe 3, and we'll have evidence for arrest warrants. 2 weeks, where Mia lives in constant fear. Unfortunately, yes, the journey of those 2 weeks was one of heightened surveillance and tense waiting. Federal agents patrolled, cameras monitored, and inside the house, life continued with forced normalcy. Mia studied, Meg cooked, Nathan planned, but everyone felt a weight. The weight of knowing that out there, powerful people wanted Mia dead, and only a thin layer of protection stood between her and that threat. There were moments of acute fear, like when an unknown car drove by slowly. Agents investigated. It was just a lost delivery man. Like when the phone rang in the middle of the night, Nathan answered. Deadline. Probably wrong number, but each incident triggered adrenaline. Each unexpected sound created tension, and then the FBI made a move. A coordinated operation, simultaneous in 3 states. And in the early hours of Tuesday, they arrested 3 leaders. Marcus Vitelli, a businessman with import businesses. James Kowalski, a real estate broker with properties used as safe houses. And Catherine Price, a lawyer who had used her office to launder money. All 3 arrested. All 3 with solid evidence. Morrison came personally to deliver the news. It's over. Leaders are in custody. Network dismantled. Ms. Chen, you are safe now. Mia didn't react immediately. She just sat down, as if her legs couldn't take it anymore. Is it over? She repeated. Is it really over? It will take months to prosecute everyone, for trials to happen, and you will have to testify. But active threat, yes, it's over. Mia's transformation was gradual, because months of fear don't evaporate with a single statement. But slowly, over the course of days, she began to relax. She began to sleep without waking up to every sound. She began to think about the future not as a remote possibility, but as an attainable reality. I'm going back to school, she told Nathan a week after the arrests. The college said they're going to readmit me, offering a partial scholarship for everything. That's amazing. And the gas station the new manager offered me a job back, not the night shift, but something. Are you going to accept? I don't know. Maybe I need money. But the idea of going back there, where it all started, I understand. And whatever decision you make, it's the right one. But with security came fulfillment. Nathan and Mia no longer needed to live together. There was no legal reason. There was no threat forcing proximity. And that realization brought a difficult decision. I'm going to look for an apartment, Mia said. For me and Grandma. We can't impose this forever. It's not imposition, Nathan said quickly. Perhaps too quickly. But I understand. You need your own space. Your lives back. Not because I don't like being here, Mia clarified, but because you've done so much. And I don't want you to feel obligated. I never felt obligated. But Mia, build your life the way it should be. And know that there's always a place here. Always. And in those words, in an unspoken promise that the family they had formed wouldn't end just because of a crisis, they both understood something permanent had been built. Not just a temporary alliance, but a real connection. Now I want to delve even deeper into this subject, because the days following the arrests brought not only relief, but also decisions. Decisions about what came next, about how Mia rebuilt her life, and about whether the connection between her and Nathan was merely a product of crisis, or something that would survive when the dust settled. The FBI offered a witness protection program 2 days after the leader's arrest. Morrison showed up with paperwork. Ms. Chen, given the high profile of this case, and the fact that you will be a key witness in multiple trials, we strongly recommend witness protection, new identity, relocation to another state, financial support while you rebuild your life. Mia looked at the documents. New life, new identity, a chance to start where nobody knew her story. where she wasn't that girl who was unjustly imprisoned. Just someone, anyone. How long? Potentially permanent, depending on residual threats after trials. Minimum of 2 years. And school. My grandmother. She can continue her education under a new identity. And your grandmother would be relocated with you. Both of you would receive new identities, documents, cover stories. It seemed reasonable. It seemed safe. It seemed like leaving everything behind, including Nathan. Can I think about it? Of course, but Ms. Chen, trials begin in 3 months. We need a decision soon to process the paperwork. The transformation in the following days was Mia processing. She talked to May, who in Mandarin said, "Do what is safe. Always choose safe." But Mia knew that May had left China decades ago. She had started over in a foreign country, and she had survived, but at what cost? Loneliness, isolation, loss of identity. Mia didn't want that. She didn't want to spend her life looking over her shoulder, living a lie, in hiding. She talked to Nathan, casually at first. The FBI offered witness protection. I know, Morrison mentioned it. What do you think? Nathan paused, because the honest answer was, I want you to stay. I want to keep having you and May here. I want family dinners and late-night conversations, and the feeling that home isn't a mausoleum. But he couldn't say that. It wasn't fair. I think it's your decision. But if you go, you'll be safe. The FBI will guarantee that. But do you think I should? I think you should do what allows you to live the life you want, not a life dictated by fear. If going to a new state, a new identity, gives you peace, then go. But if staying, if fighting to rebuild here, is what you want, then stay, and we'll find a way to keep you safe. The impact of that response, Nathan not telling her what to do, but validating any choice, gave Mia clarity. Because she realized, she didn't want to run. He didn't want to leave Millbrook. Not because she loved the city had failed her, but because she had built something here. Something with Nathan. Something she didn't want to lose. A week after the offer, Mia was packing. Not for the witness protection program, but to move. Because even deciding to stay in Millbrook, she couldn't stay at Nathan's house forever. She needed her own space. Independence. Nathan found her in the guest room, clothes in piles, trying to organize her life in suitcases. Did you find a place? Small. Apartment? Not as nice as here, but it's mine. Mine and Grandma's. We can pay for it with scholarship help, and if I get a job, when are you moving out? End of the week. I don't want to impose anymore. Mia, it was never about imposing. Nathan sat on the edge of the bed. These last few weeks, having you and May here, brought life back to this house, and I'm going to miss you. A lot. Me too, Mia admitted. But Nathan, you've done so much. You saved me. Literally, and I can't be dependent forever. I need to relearn how to be alone, how to be independent. I understand, and I respect that. But Mia, just because you're moving out doesn't mean that this is over. Family doesn't work like that. Family, Mia repeated. Big word, a word that carried weight. It's what we are, isn't it? Not by blood, but by choice. You've become, I don't know how to describe it. You're not a father. My father died and nobody replaces that. But you're a father figure. You're someone who protects, who cares, who stays. The revelation of that recognition that Mia saw Nathan not as a temporary savior, but as permanent family, was emotional for both of them. And you've become the daughter I never had, Nathan said. Deep voice. You don't replace Sarah. Nothing replaces her. But you are your own person, your own light. And having you here, seeing you grow in strength, seeing you survive when the system tried to break down, it's been an honor. They fell into a comfortable silence, processing. And then Mia said, what if I didn't want to go? Not for witness protection, but not to leave your house either. What if I wanted to stay? At least until the trials are over. Until I'm sure it's really safe. Mia, this isn't you need your own life. But what if my life now includes you? And Grandma loves being here. For the first time since Grandpa died, she's not alone. She has family. We have family. Nathan hesitated, because part of him wanted to say yes immediately. He wanted to keep the makeshift family he had formed. But the sensible part of him said, I'm not legally your guardian. You're an adult, but if something happens, if the network comes again, I have no rights. I have no authority to make medical decisions, legal decisions, nothing. Then we make it legal, Mia said. Not adoption to strange, but guardianship, or something, or just an agreement that we stay, like family does. Are you sure? Because Mia, as soon as the trials are over, you'll want your own life. You'll meet people your own age. You'll have relationships. You won't want a 52-year-old sheriff and a suburban house. Maybe, but maybe that's part of my life too. Maybe I don't have to choose between having you as family and having my own life. Maybe I can have both. The journey of that conversation was Nathan realizing that Mia was right. That family wasn't a limitation. It was a foundation. It was the base from which she could grow. And if she wanted to stay, if May wanted to stay, who was he to say no? Okay, he said, then you stay. But on one condition, you focus on school, on dreams, on building a future. This isn't an indefinite pause from real life. It's part of real life. Understood? Understood. And Mia smiled. A real smile. The first since it all began. And Nathan, seeing that, knew he had made the right choice. But right choices don't mean guaranteed security. And that night, when everyone had gone to bed, when the house was quiet and dark, the sound of something falling on the porch woke Nathan. He went downstairs, gun in hand. He checked the doors, locked, windows, secure, and then he saw an envelope on the floor near the front door. Had it been pushed underneath? Left on the porch, and the wind carried it inside through an opening. Nathan picked it up. No markings, no stamp. He opened it. Inside, a photo of Mia, on Nathan's porch, taken through a window. The angle suggested the photographer was outside. Days ago, based on the clothes Mia was wearing, and on the back of the photo, a message. Letters cut from a newspaper. The style of an old kidnapping movie, but effective. We know where she is. Leaders arrested, but soldiers remain. Her testimony will never reach court. You can't protect her forever. We're waiting. Nathan felt his blood run cold, because Morrison had said the network was dismantled. That leaders arrested meant the operation was dead. But clearly it wasn't. Clearly there were others. And they were watching, waiting, planning. He didn't wake Mia immediately. He didn't want to scare her in the middle of the night. But in the morning, he showed her and called Morrison. You said it was over, that she was safe. Leaders are in jail. Operation is. Someone left a threat, with a photo, taken from this house. So no, it's not over. Morrison came in person. He saw the photo. He saw the message, and his face hardened. There are cells, members. We haven't identified yet. I'm surprised they're still operating. Surprised, Nathan repeated. You guaranteed her safety. And now Mia has a documented threat that her testimony will never reach court. What are you going to do about it? Increase protection. Keep agents. It's not enough. Because if there are cells, if there are people they haven't captured, then Mia is in danger. And she will remain in danger until every member is arrested. That could take months, years. So she lives in fear for months, years. Mia, listening to the conversation, made a decision. I'm not going into witness protection. I'm not going to let them force me to run. But I'm also not going to live in fear. So, FBI, find them. Find every person involved, and do it fast. Because I'm going to testify. I'm going to make sure everyone is convicted. And if they want to stop me, they'll have to get me first. And I have Nathan. And I have your promise. So do your job. It was a declaration of war. from a 22-year-old against a network that had operated for decades. But it was also a declaration of courage, of refusing to be a victim, of choosing to fight. And this is where Mia and Nathan's story ends for now. Not because it's over. Stories like this never end cleanly and perfectly. They continue. They evolve. They face new challenges and find new ways to survive. Mia decided to stay, not to run, not to hide under a new identity in a distant state. She stayed in Millbrook, at Nathan's house, with May, building something that felt like family. She went back to community college, admitted with a scholarship and support from professors who finally saw the injustice she had suffered. He testified in trials, one by one. Rick Donovan first, then lower-ranking members, and eventually the three leaders. And every time, Nathan was there. In the courtroom, not as sheriff. He had resigned after a conduct review, determined he had operated outside acceptable protocol, but as family, as someone who had promised to be by her side. And he was. The FBI continued hunting down the remaining cells. They arrested 4 more people in the following months. And threats receded. They didn't disappear completely, but they receded enough for Mia to breathe, to sleep without waking up in a panic, to plan for the future. Nathan found a new purpose, not as sheriff, but as a consultant for a nonprofit organization that helped victims of human trafficking. He used his experience, he used his knowledge, and he used Mia's story with her permission to show how the system could fail, how witnesses could be incriminated, how real protection required not only protocol but humanity. May flourished. For the first time in a decade, she wasn't alone. She had a granddaughter. She had Nathan, whom she treated like the son she never had. She had a house full of life, instead of an empty apartment full of memories. And Mia finished her nursing program. It took longer than she planned. Trials interrupted. Trauma delayed. But she finished. And when she received her diploma, when she officially became a registered nurse, Nathan and May were there, applauding louder than anyone, crying, because she had done it. She had survived a system that tried to destroy her. She had overcome trauma that could have broken her. There were still bad days. Days when Mia saw a black SUV and froze. Days when Nathan woke up in the middle of the night checking locks. Days when May held her granddaughter and cried for everything they almost lost. But there were more good days. Days of family dinners, of laughing about Nathan's cooking mistakes, of Mia bringing stories from the hospital where she worked, of May teaching traditional recipes, of normalcy that had been impossible for so long. If this kind of story resonates with you, if you want to keep following stories about people whom the system fails, but who refuse to give up, about protection that comes from unexpected places, about family that is chosen, not born, subscribing here is the way to continue walking with me. Because every week I bring stories like this. Stories about real justice versus systemic justice. About the courage to testify when it's easier to stay silent. About paternal love that doesn't come from blood, but from the conscious choice to stay when everyone else leaves. Comment below. I'm with you until the end. I read every comment, every word. And I want to know if Mia and Nathan reached you, if you felt anger when the FBI arrested her without investigating, if you felt relief when Nathan finally believed her, if you understand that sometimes family isn't who you're born with, but who you choose to stay with when everything falls apart, and if this touched you in any way, if at any point you felt the weight of being unjustly accused, or what it's like to finally have someone who sees you really, sees you when everyone else looks right through you, leave a like so. No, because these stories are about connection. And like me, tell me you felt something. That Mia's journey, from accidental witness to a woman who refused to be silenced, resonated with something real. There's a video over here that continues in the same vein. Another story about a young woman involved in something bigger than she understands. About a system that wants quick solutions but not truth. About a sheriff who has to choose between protocol and conscience. Click and follow me there. Because the journey doesn't stop. Characters change, scenarios change, but the truth at the center always remains, that systems can fail, but individuals can choose to do differently. That real protection comes not from a badge but from a heart that refuses to let the innocent be destroyed. And that the strongest family is the one forged in fire, tested by adversity, and that chooses to stay even when the crisis passes. See you soon.